Hello, and welcome to the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. This podcast will show you how to achieve FI through entrepreneurial pursuits by developing a well-calibrated and thought-out plan for risk management so that you can maximize the rewards.
Hosted by certified financial planner, enrolled agent, and serial entrepreneur Ben Martinek, this is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker.
The information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of the content is presented as investment advice. Consult your financial professional before acting on any of the information presented in this show. Well, hello, everyone. It's good to be here, and we've got a fun episode. I'm joined by my wonderful wife this morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
We're recording this episode, if you'd believe it, in the middle of the night. We're on our way to a big trip, although I don't want to timestamp us too much, so I won't share where we're going. We'll just tease you with it. I hope you feel teased. It's kind of fun to be recording an episode in the middle of the night. What do you think, Deb? Is it fun?
It is fun. I'm a little caffeine stimulated right now, so it's been a short night of sleep, but we'll have a good time with this episode and prep.
Sure. So Deb is ready to rock and roll. Watch out, everybody. See what happens. So our episode today that we wanted to chat about was, why do smart people do dumb things with money, and what effect can this have on entrepreneurial endeavors? Entrepreneurial. I got there.
You did. It's such a tongue twister to say that word.
Yeah.
I have to think about each syllable whenever I'm saying it every time that we discuss that on the episodes.
For sure. Entrepreneurial. I got it. So why do smart people do dumb things with money? You know, I've looked through this question quite a bit, and we see this sometimes in practice. Sometimes you hear about it more. A lot of times this question is brought up specifically to the matter of investing, which, you know, has strong corollaries actually as to what we're wanting to accomplish and talk about here with the FI Entrepreneur. Because I think investing in yourself and starting a business is investing. And so it's similar struggles that you would have just as much as maybe putting some money in a publicly traded company and then maybe seeing that company's current financial earnings report not do so well and the stock go down, and there being troubles perhaps of whether or not to stay invested with them in the wake of bad news. You know, there's without question, our initial response to things is not always rationally driven. In fact, almost certainly not rationally driven. It can be very emotionally driven. And I can speak certainly from plenty of personal experience in this, both in working with folks when it comes to money and their responses to good news and bad news on the global landscape. You know, I can relate to this struggle to continue to hold the course and do what you're supposed to be doing or what you had planned to do in the face of bad news. And so what we want to touch upon and really lead into is some work that's been done out there, especially in the behavioral finance space, that discusses how, let's just say, negative news impacts our behaviors and why we respond or how we respond to it and how you should help to be aware of it. There's a great book as we jump into this. I suppose, you know, Deb, just to let you chime in. What do you think? You ready for that? You want to just jump right on in?
Let's dive off the diving board.
We're going all in, folks.
All in, head first.
I think the best book on this whole discussion, like really barring nothing, and I've read a number of books. I haven't read as many lately, you know, good or bad, folks. Once business starts to get going, it takes up a lot of your time. So I used to read a ton, sometimes several books a month, and now I barely have time to even open the books I've read, let alone read new ones. It's kind of like, gosh, where did all the time go? But there's a book out there called Your Money and Your Brain by Jason Zweig. The subtitle to this is How the New Science of Neuroeconomics Can Help Make You Rich. I love this. Marketing can help make you rich. Everybody loves that. Like, oh yeah, I want to read that book. This is going to make you rich. Sign me up. That's definitely some marketing person. I don't think Jason came up with that. He would be like, oh, that's a stupid line. Can't include that in my book. It's not about making you rich. Probably is actually about making you rich, but people are like, yeah, this was going to sell this book.
We're going to capitalize on this. We're totally capitalizing on this with the use of neuroeconomics, the science, and of course, wanting to capitalize on making money.
Sure. I suppose we are in the business of helping people become rich, but it just strikes me as like such a cheesy line. Maybe like, I'm going to make you rich. Yes. All right. Let's do it. Well, one of the great lines he has here, and I want us to really focus in on in this book, it's a common theme in the book, really quite informative. If I were to spend the whole show here just promoting Jason Zweig's book, Your Money in Your Brain, I don't think I would be doing it enough justice. If you're serious about trying to understand these underpinning developments, what literally takes place in your brain, at least as they understand it, in the face of adverse situations when it comes to your money, that's what this book is all about. Anyhow, this line is, you will never maximize your wealth unless you can optimize your mind. I mean, it's similar to some of the mindset work, right, that you're familiar with. You will never maximize your wealth unless you can optimize your mind. Gosh, just let that sit in for a little bit, folks. Like there's just a connection to, I mean, this is why it's neuroeconomics. Like, unless your mindset and your response to negative events has first been addressed and looked into, it's going to mess up all your decision making, and it's going to impact negatively, presumably. I mean, I told you that this book is all about, it's the negative impact, not the positive impact, but it's usually the negative impact of our money decisions because of our response to these bad events. So what's your initial response to Deb? Love my wife. This is not like, she likes finance because she loves me, but
this is true.
She has interest in other endeavors if you haven't picked up. So Deb, what's your thought to that? I mean, you'll never maximize your wealth unless you can optimize your mind.
That is a very heavy weighted statement that I personally want to put on a Post-it note and put it on my mantra of all the different mindset things I have on my bathroom mirror. Folks, if you ever come over to our house, going into our bathroom is quite the experience. So to be able to manage your mindset, especially when dealing in adverse situations, I've done a fair bit of mindset work over the last couple of years myself. And there's often two kind of trains of thought that come along whenever you have an experience. So there's a thought of scarcity or a thought of abundance. And wherever your mindset is in these has its effect on how you're going to respond to the situation. So with scarcity, a lot of this has to do with how maybe you were brought up and your own emotional responses to money, what your parents did, how your parents made money and how they responded to money. And in my case, we didn't have a lot of it growing up. There was certainly a scarcity. We can't afford to do this. We can't afford to do that. Extracurriculars were not really an option for us growing up just because there wasn't the funding there to be able to make it happen. And so you can see that thread pull itself through. And then whenever it comes to money decisions, behavioral finance, the neuroeconomics when it comes to how I make decisions. First of all, I'm very glad to be married to my husband, Ben, who is the finance guy and can help walk me through in a rational and logical way what decisions to make. But I often default to a scarcity mindset. Well, that's just going to cost money, and we're just not going to do that. But when you adjust your mindset to more of an abundance, so having an internal script, instead of it saying, we can't afford that, that's too much. We make enough money to meet our needs. I have a rational response to money questions and being able to lead yourself down that path of abundance rather than scarcity.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking there, honey, is really spot on when it comes to these money scripts. Like, that's probably front and center. One of the challenges when it comes to managing your money is what initially runs through your head. Something comes up, like I want to go on a vacation, or I want to get that house, or I don't know. I mean,
we can't afford it.
We can't afford it. Stop
No,
it.
that's the mindset. That's the frame of mind that comes through whenever you think about these things. Or even I want to go out to dinner. Can't afford it.
Well, so that's your response. Other people are like, sure, let's go. It's not a matter of affording it. No question. So
that does lead to diving into that a little bit more, though. So considering like I had a scarcity mindset because there genuinely wasn't enough funds, but there might also not be enough funds, but the mindset of, we'll just figure it out. We'll wing this. And so maybe if you grew up in that kind of mindset or mentality where your parents or those that were heavily influential on you growing up were like, well, we're going to shoot from the hip, basically. Even if the money's not there, we're going to have this mindset. And so for good or for ill, that can have an effect also where you have more of an abundance there, even if the funds aren't. But the mindset is key.
For sure. Well, I think in the field of behavioral finance, like what's critical within our decision making is this notion of loss aversion. For good or bad, we're really wired, and they would suggest strongly due to evolutionary influences, we're wired to think fit to avoid anything that would come to a loss. This protective mechanism to make sure that we maintain our survivability by not taking on too much risk and wanting to retract when we feel overextended or stretched. Because, well, if we stay overextended or stretched, we stay exposed And eventually you get nipped. We have an instinctive reaction to know that if I keep myself in this way, bad things could happen. And so I need to pull up into a ball and maybe stop all activity. And so we respond very strongly to losses. We respond more strongly to losses than we do to gains. I mean, they suggest in the research, it's as much as 4 times. You could make $500 in the market, let's say, or whatever. Maybe you've come across $500. A loss of $500 would require a gain of $2,000 for it to come out to the same impact to us emotionally on the positive and negative side. So again, a $500 loss would be the same thing for us feeling wise as about a $2,000 gain. You might say, well, $500 is not all that much. And $2,000, wow, that's quite a bit of money, or at least decent. I mean, it's 4 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to drive home is a $500 loss and a $500 gain aren't responded to with equal footing. And so there's this maxim that I think we're all pretty familiar with. It's just so much at play. And I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in clients about a bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush. Has anybody ever heard this expression? Have you heard this? Have you ever wondered what it means?
Yes.
You want to know more? So why do we have this expression? It's a bird in a hand versus 2 in the bush. It's about loss aversion, fundamentally, if you're not aware of that, at least that's my interpretation of it. We would rather take one bird that's in the hand, that we know it's secure, it's guaranteed, it's there, like we're not going to lose it. That's a much better deal for us than letting go of that bird and trying to get the 2 that are in the bush. We're doubling our earnings, we're doubling our gains. That'd be great. Let's go for it. Let's take that chance. Let's take that risk. But at the loss of the one bird in the hand, it feels overwhelming. A bird in the hand is worth more than 2 in the bush. And that's just something. A bird in the hand is worth more than 2 in the bush. That's so true. And so when it comes to making decisions, to bring this back into us, the FI entrepreneur, about running a business daily, daily we're confronted with decisions about growing and taking new initiatives and new endeavors and which options to pursue. But there's this overarching response sitting upon us of this loss aversion and this fear of making a mistake, this fear of failure, this fear of messing up, that can certainly hamper your ability to think through a situation. You will just instinctively, I don't know if this is again true for everybody. It's certainly true of me, and I have seen it true of other clients. For what it's worth, it seems like some people seem immune to it. Whatever, let's just spend some money, see what happens. But, I certainly am like, oh gosh, it's hard to see losses. It's really hard to see losses. And when you experience one of those, your instinct is to run away or to get away from it so you can survive, so you don't die. Like we link money to our survival, I think, as human beings. And if I want to stay alive, I need to not take certain chances with my money. Well, there's some truth to that and not truth to that, right? I mean, not taking a risk is a risk itself, but our natural response many times, certainly for myself, but for other people too, is let's not take any risk. Where's that going to lead you? And so especially if we're in this business of entrepreneurship, we're in this business of running a business, clearly you can't run a business and say, I'm not going to take any risk. Right?
Then you're out of business.
Yeah, that's right. It's not going to happen.
Shut the door.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. What keeps coming to mind as you discuss this, Ben, is more on the emotional level, not necessarily in response to money, but it drives home the same point as the fight or the flight response. I'm sure you've all heard of this, an emotionally challenging or draining situation. You're going to find yourself in a position where your endorphins are ready to move either to fight against the oppressive experience or to flight, to run away. And there's also option number 3, which can be equally paralyzing, pun intended, is to freeze. So you've got these 3 options. And we see this in play in these money-making decisions as well whenever it comes to risk. We are more averse or tolerant. But if you're going to make progress, we have to accept the fact that there's going to be risk and to prepare ourselves in an abundant mindset to be able to accept those and take them as opportunities for growth, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'm glad you've made that pivot, Deb. So, I've talked about this loss aversion, and this will be present unless you're not human. Presumably are if you're listening to this. Unless you're not human, this loss aversion will be present to you in any form. I think where it's most typically on display, and I'm at least most familiar with it, is when it comes to investing, as it's described, and how we have to optimize our mindset. Again, as Jason Swag is telling us in Your Money in Your Brain, if we want to optimize our investments, like the two go hand in hand. We can't just simply put a strategy or a game plan together. If we haven't at the same time optimized our mindset, it will hamper or limit our ability to invest well. I just really, truly think that's mind-blowing. But let's talk a little bit, Deb, about optimizing your mindset. Like, what have you done in response to some of these money scripts? I can speak about what I've done. We have money scripts running through our head. What are you doing in response to the money scripts when they show up, or what actions have you taken?
This is a great tip that I've learned from my mentor, Anna, with this is whenever you find yourself having a money script that's deeply seated in your own history, your childhood, your past, whatever, that usually has a negative connotation to it. At least it does for me. The best thing that you can do in that point is step back, recognize that you're saying the negative, having the negative money script, but then pause and say, is this true? So be able to take a moment to analyze the fact that you've got this money script that is easy to flow through your brain as blood is flowing through your body, but to stop and recognize that this is being said, and then to ask yourself, is this true? And then if the answer to that is no, then you can reframe your mindset and say, okay, thank you, that's interesting, but this is not true in my situation. I'm choosing to embrace the mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. Yeah, I can't afford it. No. Is that true? Well, maybe I can make a better money decision. It's not about affording this, but is this the right decision moving forward? So to be able to stop yourself, recognizing that negative scarcity mindset that you might have, and be able to pivot and put that, for lack of a better term, positive spin on it, but looking at abundance. What about you, Ben? Whenever you have money scripts that are coming through your head and that might come from a scarcity mindset, what steps do you take to recognize that, and how do you respond?
Oh, I respond poorly, folks. It's the truth. The real answer comes out. I catch myself, as we were looking ahead. I mean, we have some big plans that we're putting together in one of our businesses, and there's some really exciting developments and opportunities that lie there. And yet, man, it's like my mind, whether I want it to or not, just immediately goes to ruminating on all the bad things I think are going to happen. And what's kind of shocking about this is it doesn't happen in the broad daylight while I'm sitting down on my computer or while I'm working. It's not like it's an intrusive thought that comes to me during the day. So quite frankly, I feel pretty good about this during my waking hours. But
when he's sleeping.
when I'm sleeping, man, it's amazing how our brains process this information, process risk. And, they talk about investing more broadly, about how, you got to be able to sleep at night. You got to be able to take risks that you're comfortable with. And that's just so true. I mean, where we will see risk fully exposed is when you're sleeping. It's certainly when I see it. Our minds are processing your situation and where you're at. And for me, it just comes to the head of, it's not going to work. This is a bad idea. Yeah, basically, you shouldn't take this risk. I mean, it isn't quite that literal, but that's pretty much all of my responses of like, what am I doing? Like, don't you know what could go wrong here? It's like my brain is trying to tell me you need to step away, get out of this. And I mean, it's strong enough, it'll wake you up in the middle of the night. And, I've had it in cold sweats. There's a psychosomatic response to risk that we have. And it obviously will get in the way of what we decide to do. I mean, if we continue to allow that to decide where we go, we're going to limit ourselves, probably unnecessarily limit ourselves, and not pursue an opportunity. But otherwise, especially in the counsel of others, as we've talked about this specific thing that we're considering, the counsel of others is the smarter or a good move to make. So the broader theme of this show is, why do smart people that we'd otherwise feel are intelligent, intellectual, capable, rational, might say level-headed, why do they make, or why could they make bad money decisions, stupid money decisions, do things that in retrospect are dumb? Well, folks, it's because of these money scripts, whether you realize or not. They're really set apart first and foremost in what you rely on as a way to process and understand your day and your life. And if you really want to optimize your financial situation, you want to optimize your investments. And, this is something that I'm learning still to do by all means, but you have to start to rewire your response to these stimulus with new scripts. So instead of saying, we don't have enough money, the scarcity mindset, or it won't work, or it's never enough, or gosh, you always screw things up. Why couldn't you do that better? Or don't you think the business is ever going to succeed if you don't make mistakes? There could be these silly things that come up in our heads. On any reflection, we go like, I don't think for a moment that's true. But yet there it is, like that was bouncing around in our heads saying, this is what it is. Yeah, we've invested time and money in programs to help us go through the process of rewiring this, because it's become such front and central actually into part of how we manage the business. So how have you enjoyed mindset work, or what's one of the best scripts that you have, Deb, when it comes to helping to rewire your frame of mind?
I really have enjoyed the mindset work. It's been very eye-opening for me over the last couple of years as I've dove more into it. I actually listened for a long time. I would record my voice saying these scripts on my phone. And then when I would exercise or work out in the morning, I would just repeat these scripts. There's that neuroscience involved in that with your own voice telling you these things about yourself, which is really helpful. Boy, my favorite script, especially whenever it comes to money, I really do think it is, I make smart, rational, logical decisions with my money. Like that right there, it nips in the bud whatever scarcity mindset that you might have. Oh, I don't have enough. I make smart, rational, logical decisions with my money. And we see this too in the work that you do with your clients, especially in the financial planning business, Ben, don't we? There have been numerous situations where the clients have an ideal situation, but feel very limited in what they can do with their situation. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, it is shocking, our own self-assessment of where we stand. And this almost goes into another podcast episode that we'd have to talk about, but how we tend to judge ourselves in relative terms. So even though on any objective measure, someone might be doing very well and succeeding and checking all the boxes, so to say, and is winning, especially looking over the historical narrative of humanity or just even what's available to us, we very much could say are first world problems, only having first world problems, yet still feeling like they don't have enough, or they haven't done enough, or they haven't succeeded enough, or they haven't, things haven't gone far enough. That's determined on a relative level. We're looking to other people, usually within our same socioeconomic arrangement, and making a determination of what they have versus what we have, this comparative game, and then deciding whether or not, how am I doing according to the Joneses, right? That's the person, this famous Jones people out there who help decide how we all should be living. So we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, right, as the expression goes. I think people push back or they struggle. They're looking for reassurance about where they're doing by comparing themselves to their friends and colleagues. And quite frankly, some people can feel like they're not winning with money because they are actually winning. They're doing the right decisions.
Mm-hmm.
They're investing in themselves, or maybe they have a lot of savings rate. And so it doesn't show up in their actual life. If you look at them, it doesn't look like they're particularly winning. They're very unassuming rich person, as kind of described by the millionaire next door, these prodigal accumulators of wealth, as Thomas Stanley described them. So they actually are winning. But when they look and compare themselves to other people, it doesn't feel like that because, they're not spending, quite frankly, not spending as much as others. So I think, again, there's this instinctive, we have a herd mentality within us that we look to others to help to determine how well we're doing and a sense of our own security. And when we see in our relativity where we stand versus our colleagues or our peers, and it doesn't seem, from a material standpoint, but we have as much, like what is in terms of display, again, we feel like we're out of the pack. There's a sense of loss, there's a sense of risk, and then we feel this burden or this pressure.
And vulnerable.
Yeah, to do more. Well, yeah, I mean, if we're out of the pack, we're out of the pack, and now we're on our own. Again, it keeps going back to this sense of vulnerability or exposure. And then that drives your decision to be like, oh, well, we need maybe a nicer car. I mean, your current car may be perfectly fine. Nothing's malfunctioning on it, but we're like looking for things for it to be wrong because our car is old versus other cars that are new.
This is a whole other episode, people.
Other cars that are new. So again, to counteract this, I just don't think there's any other solution to it other than to have money scripts in which we just start to basically speak back to ourselves. And the script that we'll narrate within ourselves, we speak back to it with another script. So Deb, I mean, as we look to wrap this up, I mean, what's that script? I mean, I love what you're saying. Deb is further along in the mindset work than I am. So I've listened to all this stuff, but I haven't done any of the homework. So just so typical of me.
It is.
So Deb is, gold stars for you, honey, for actually going and doing. They actually tell you in the mindset work, you're supposed to do the homework. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'm supposed to, and then I don't. But I've listened to all the shows. But what's the script again, honey, that you like to replay back?
I make informed, logical, and rational decisions with my money.
Right. And so you can say, look, I do this. And so when your mind's going like, no, we're all going to die. I mean, it's really like, this is what's going on.
No, I make informed, logical, rational decisions with my money.
And then, so just, quiet up you. Let's just put you away for a little bit. Everything's fine. And I know you're freaking out and it's okay. we'll give you permission to freak out a little bit, but we're going to then put you back away in your box and say instead, look, what we're doing here is informed, rational decisions with our money, and we're okay. We're going to be okay. So, folks, what's the relevance to all this? Hopefully it's been particularly clear. Otherwise, we haven't done a very good job this morning. But, the relevance is, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be a business owner, you're going to be dealing with risk and decisions. I mean, if you want your business to grow, you are going to have to take some risk. The two just go hand in hand. We can't not grow a business without taking risk. I mean, that's instinctively why so many people always want to maybe grow a business, but don't come around to doing it because they're just afraid of what that risk might entail. Mm-hmm. So you are going to face risk. I mean, entrepreneur literally means risk taker. So kind of speaking the obvious here, but you need to be fully aware of it. In the face of these risks, you will be confronted with, these demons, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And you need to have responses back to them because they're going to be there and they're not going away. And they will drive the decisions you're making. And unfortunately, them at the wheel can lead to financial ruin. I mean, they can certainly lead to less optimal, we'll say, outcomes than it would be even if we let these money scripts and these mindset work redefine what it is we do. So to reiterate, what I love about Your Money and Your Brain with Jason Zweig, it was such a really good read. And the whole book focuses in on this line here that I'm just going to leave you with because I just think it's spot on true. That folks, we will never maximize our wealth unless we can optimize our mind. If you want to maximize your wealth, you got to optimize your mind. The two go hand in hand. I mean, we spend a lot of our time trying to do everything right on our balance sheet, but we really need to spend a lot more time about getting everything right in between our ears. So I hope that leaves you with some good thoughts for reflection. Thanks for tuning with us today, and we'll be in touch.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've had as much fun as we did. If you'd like to learn more about any of the subjects we spoke about, please visit our website for show notes, links, and more. Hit like, subscribe, or whatever button you've got in front of you to show some love. Remember, the information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Remember what Teddy Roosevelt said about the person who strives greatly. If he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Until next time, keep striving.
Thanks again, and be well.